The first year of med school didn't break me, but it came pretty close. And honestly, that's when I started becoming the kind of doctor and the kind of founder that I am today. Welcome back to the Founder Series. I'm Dr. Rebecca Hertel, and this show is where I pull back the curtain on what it really looks like to build something meaningful in midlife as a mom, a doctor, and a first-time founder. In our last episode, I shared how my medical journey began in the middle of deep personal grief. Today, I want to pick up where I left off because that first year, it didn't get easier, but it did start to shape me. I really want to start with my med school realities and, kind of like what it was, what it really looked like, what that first year looked like. It is like a deer in a headlight. That's probably the best way to explain it. You walk in medical school and you're just like, I'm so excited I'm here. I don't know how I got here. Are they going to find out that I don't belong here and kick me out? That is imposter syndrome, everyone, if you don't know. And it truly is real. It's really real. So again, I had family. The hours that you put into learning and to studying is beyond any hours I've ever put in that first year. And the second year too. The medical students that I teach, I tell them your first 2 years are your worst. If you can survive the first 2 years of medical school, you can survive anything. Okay? I'm going to say that. If you can survive those first 2 years of medical school, you can survive anything. Because yes, residency was hard, but it is like drinking from a fire hydrant and you're just hoping the stuff that comes straight at you is gonna stick. The cool thing is what we don't realize is that those are the same things that you're gonna hear over and over again. You're gonna keep those important things. You're gonna hear them so many times that although you think it's the first time, I have no idea what these drugs are, I have no idea what these medicines are, they're just shooting all this information and this anatomy at you. You're gonna continuously hear these things. And then eventually you're gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, that's right. I remember that. And so I think if somebody would have told me that, study your ass off, but remember that they're giving you all of this information in this short amount of time on purpose, you are going to hear it again and again and again and again. And so that does make a difference. You're sitting with a whole bunch of other people that are also the smartest people in their, in their classes, in their community, whatever else it is. And you're just like, am I the dumbest smart person in here? Am I you're just not really sure. Because you do have those people that have to tell you just how smart they are all the time. And as a matter of fact, my daughter and I my oldest daughter who's in medical school now, had that conversation. She's just like, why does everybody have to try to prove how smart they are? We're all here because we're all smart. We're all here because we all worked hard and you're smart and you're driven and you'll weed out the ones that really aren't there for those reasons. Either it's too much, they realize they don't like it. It wasn't for them, or whatever. It was a game for them to get into because things were easy. So, who you start with in your medical school class is not going to be who you end with. Let's put it that way for sure. I think, it's one of those things that I was a really hardworking student, even before in undergrad and in high school. I also had some moves away from all of my family into a different high school. So that played a different stressor in life before getting into medical school. And I didn't get in my first time. And so that was an issue. I didn't know how to study right. I finally learned how to do that. So there was already some insecurities as far as once I finally got there. Once you talk about it, people that you're just like, what? You've been doing this forever. You're a neurosurgeon or you're a cardiologist or you're a GYN. You have imposter syndrome too. So this isn't just me. We all are just like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? So those were some big insecurities, but I also had a family and I was pregnant too. So I already struggled, I had pregnancy brain, and then I developed horrific hypothyroidism. I was already diagnosed with it, I had said before, but I don't even remember if it was my first or second year of school, but I had a goiter. I couldn't remember anything. Like my TSH was 135, which if you know anything about the thyroid, typically anything over 5 is abnormal. So I was 135, my levels. And so, there were just some other struggles that I also dealt with. And I'm not the only one, but I mean, it was, so you were struggling with like pregnancy brain, trying to remember everything, trying to navigate, family life, studying all the time. But then in the back of your mind, you're just like, someone going to come and say, oh, we made a mistake. We're going to pull you out of here when you weren't really supposed to be here. I don't, and I don't know where that came from. And that may have just been my own insecurities as just a person and a female. Maybe I was in honor classes before, and I did great in undergrad. I don't know where those insecurities came from, or if it's just because it's such a competitive field. When you go through that, it's the best of the best, and everyone around you is smart. So then you are kind of like, are you the less smart of all the smart? If that makes sense. My med school experience was definitely different, just because my reality was different than everybody else's. And so, there were several things that did keep me grounded and kept me moving. So number one would be stubborn about your goals. Don't let anything get in your way of that goal and that dream that you've set forth in front of you. The second thing is to have a strong why. Don't lose track of what you got in to this particular thing for, or this goal for. There's motivation in why you went into that, whether it be for family, for needing to take care of someone. Often also remember in college, there was a tragic car accident. And when I was thinking like I was going to leave and not do medicine, I go back to that incident because I didn't know how to help that person laying on the side of the road. So that was also my why, to remember like I got into this for myself, my family, and to help people. And the third is to build a community, whether it is family, friends, both, you need to have that community around you. Don't be afraid to meet new friends, meet new people. Most often, medical schools are a conglomeration of people from everywhere. So not everyone is going to know someone else. So don't be afraid to invite them in your house. You all go get some food and some snacks. And because none of you can afford anything at that point, so just go get whatever you can from Aldi's or wherever it is and put everything out on the table, and you've got some snacks and you start studying. And that's it, and then it's the next house and the next one, or it's a coffee shop. Whatever it is, find that time. And if you all have kids, then it's great because all the kids can play while you study. And putting yourself out there to find those new friends, it can be difficult. But once you do that, they can be a really great additional support system. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about coping and carrying on. And as you all know, there was a lot of transition. And in the middle of all that chaos and pressure, I was trying to survive. So let's talk about what kept me going. I want to talk about kind of some of the things that helped shape who I was starting to become. I think it's a little blurred just because I was really focusing on studying and being a mom. I mean, I had my second baby in between my first and second year of medical school. Between your first and second year, you actually get a summer off. So I did. I had Ella. We had a summer off, took her actually out to Arizona to the Grand Canyon, this little newborn baby at like 6 weeks, to go visit family, introduce her to all my family back out in California, which was really fun. So I really got a break just to kind of like not even think about things for that summer, which I really think I did. I think I was just like, okay, I survived the first year. I'm going to be mom. Now, I have this 3-year-old and this newborn, and I'm going to have to start my second year. And so really, I think even those first 2 years were just like, I was just going through the motions, studying and not thinking about myself, taking care of these babies, and then going into that second year of medical school. That really was just kind of like this, I think is more of, the gerbil on the wheel, right? Like I was just doing the things that I was supposed to do. And I would say my rotations, third and fourth year when you're actually like getting out and starting to see things. And then residency really is what shaped me as more of a person, and then getting ready to be this doctor, but second year, it's really kind of a lot like your first year. You're doing the same types of things. We were more out in lecture, more self-study, more self-taught. And then third year comes into your rotations when you change every 4 weeks. So every 4 weeks you're switching into different things. And that is definitely an experience. It could be great or it could be terrible, depending on who you are with and who your attending physician is. So they will either want to embarrass you, make you feel like you are the dumbest person, do what's called pimp you, where, they just ask you questions. That's what it's called. They pimping you. They ask you all these questions because you're supposed to be prepared, see all the patients before they get there, and then be able to give them a synopsis of whatever maybe a patient is doing. Or if you're in surgery, you have to be ready for them to ask questions about body parts or anatomy. Like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And now, mind you, we have not ever been in surgery. So you're hoping that you remember what all these structures are and that they don't kick you out of the OR. You scrub in right, and that you put your mask on right. And God forbid you should touch something inappropriately, and now you have contaminated the whole entire surgical area and get yelled at for that. So you feel really small as a student in your third and fourth year, really in every rotation. And I will tell you that that molded me as an attending physician to never make my students feel small and insignificant, ever, because it feels terrible, awful to make someone feel so small and so insignificant, and so it's just inhumane, some of the things that attending physicians would say to students. And then we wonder why perhaps there's a shortage of physicians. We're overworked and underpaid. I know that a lot of people don't think that, but the hours that you put in, the amount of patients that you are expected to see in an insurance-based model, especially family medicine, GYN, that's why they call OBGYN deserts. You cannot, your malpractice is extraordinarily high. In an insurance-based model, if the institution that you work for did not pay for your malpractice, there's no way that you could afford that. No way. Not to mention your student loans that you accumulate and that you have to start paying back. So funny, as we're actually talking about these physician shortages, my producer sends me these stats in real time that by 2037, the US is projected to face a shortage of about 187,000 physicians, with 31 out of 35 specialties being affected. I mean, how crazy is that? And we're not talking, and 87,000 of these are primary care physicians, which would be like family medicine, your internal medicine, pediatrics, geriatrics, things like that. The people that take care of all of you, right? And so there's so many reasons for that. It is the debt that we take on just to go to school, undergrad, medical school, and then you get paid this amount for residency, and the time it takes, the insurance reimbursement, all of the care gaps that you have to do in all the paperwork, plus you're seeing 25 to 36 patients a day and doing the paperwork and going through the results and answering the phone calls. Hopefully nothing goes wrong during the day, because then that sets you completely behind. So the go, but to even get to there, you're then being put into a position where you're treated like shit. I mean, you're made to feel like you are not worthy. And what the hell are you doing here? I have legitimately had attending physicians smack my hand. Slap my hand. Yes. I don't know how much that goes on. So then you wonder, right? They don't want to take on the debt. It's a lot of time by the time you're out, you're, mid to late 20s. And then you're also going through the trauma of medical school and residency. It is an amount of trauma. You're either seeing trauma, you're exposed to trauma, you're going through trauma. And there's no support. At least there wasn't for me. There is no support for physicians dealing with trauma in their medical training. So, and then you wonder why everyone wants to be influencers. I mean, there was just one that got on and said this was the first year that she made more as an influencer than as an OBGYN. Guys, for real. There needs to be a shift somewhere. Whether it is that you make medicine more inviting, there needs to be a shift to more autonomy, more time for physicians to spend with patients, less physician burnout. The suicide rate is astronomically high with physicians. I mean, and my daughter's in medical school. I mean, you have to really love it, but you also have to understand and go in with your eyes wide open. But us as attending physicians that are educating these up and coming physicians, we need to give them grace. We need to provide education to them in a mentally stable way that allows more generations to want to become educated. If you are degrading somebody and slapping their hand and making them feel incompetent and insignificant, how could we ever think that we would ever want someone to come into that? And that's generational trauma. That is no different than when I talk to my patients about alcoholism or drug addiction or abuse and it being trauma that is generational. It's the same thing with attending physicians. If someone doesn't break that, then it just continues because that's what's accepted. That's what's always been done. And it's not okay. And I don't think that's any way for us to continue growing that type of medical community at all, because I see a shift in physicians in generations coming up in the millennial generation and definitely in the Gen Z generation where they are very in tune to mental health. And if something doesn't support their mental health, then sometimes we'll make fun of it. We're like, oh, you're taking a mental health day. Like, we never had those. You are so lucky. But really, when I think back at it, they're just really in tune to like, you're not going to abuse me. Yes, my sleep is important. My stress is important. My stress levels are important. And maybe we really should be, becoming more in tune with that to say, no, maybe they're actually doing it right. We need to make sure that they have a healthy mental health, because how many physicians are alcoholics or drug addicts or, again, this high functioning depression, and it just goes unnoticed, and then a life is lost, or they make a mistake in the office that then somebody else's life is lost. So I just think that there's so much surrounding that we need to actively make changes toward our education and our students' experiences surrounding their medical education. Just again, pulled up a couple statistics here for you. It's mind-blowing when you actually look at it, because we'll get a little bit of education on, physician burnout. But, listen to this, guys. So 300 to 400 physicians per year die from suicide, which is equal to approximately one graduating med school class. Like, that's insane. I don't even know that anyone has even told me that number before. But in addition to that, think about this: 250 to 400% increased risk are women in medicine. They commit suicide over any other woman in any other workplace. So not only just physicians, but women physicians. I just think something needs to be done about that. And we're definitely, the education and the way that we are handling that is not okay at all. I think that, I maybe remember having maybe one in the last 20 years about physician burnout. Yeah. And, that's not including the trauma that they see every day. So I can't imagine that it's just about being burnt out. And we're not talking just about burnout of your number of patients. When we talk about burnout, we're including the burnout of like mental trauma that we're constantly being exposed to. And we all know that trauma changes the brain. And I'm very passionate about the fact that it's not being addressed. Nurses as well, and EMTs, so your firefighters, your first responders, they're consistently exposed to trauma because they're your first responders. So there needs to be some type of network that comes in and addresses these types of situations, because if you were you get into medical school straight out of undergrad, right? So you're maybe 21 years old. So you're telling me that you could experience your first death in your third year of medical school. So you're all of what, 23? 23 years old, and you are experiencing someone dying for the first time, or experience to somebody else's trauma about a stressful situation. Maybe their child died. Maybe, you know, someone didn't make it off the operating table, whatever it is, or maybe you are a first responder before you go to medical school. Some of my friends and colleagues, oftentimes they are. So at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, you're experiencing all of these things, responding to a house fire or someone didn't survive that, or a child didn't survive that, or maybe one child did and one child didn't. You just, or drug overdoses. Obviously we're seeing so much of that. So I think that there is something to be said about trauma in the medical field. And I think it's all just really being brushed aside. And these statistics alone, at least for physicians, are astronomically high, in my opinion. And I think that we are taught to suck it up. We don't talk about it. This is part of the job. And to address being depressed or upset or I'm tired, we just don't say those things. All right, so let's talk about some medical school myths that I would like to bust. Looking back, so much of what I believed about being a doctor, what it was supposed to look like, wasn't actually true. Those myths shaped how I saw myself back then, but they also show up now as a founder, especially when I'm building something from scratch, right? So sometimes I cry. I'm not always the smartest person in the room. I'm learning every day when I'm building something new and making all of those mistakes, right? You're starting over. It's hard building your own business and making a name for yourself and building something from nothing when you have no idea what you're doing. So those myths are the same. It's not easy, and it's not luck. It's hard work, and it's perseverance, and it is stay in the course when you think you should not, and just keep believing in yourself and knowing that the time that you're putting in, the time that you're taking away from your family, the late nights, the early mornings are for the greater good, and those dreams do come to fruition. And it just takes some time and it takes guts. Those are the lessons I think that kind of carried me into entrepreneurship, because I never would have done it. And I don't know that I would have done it before now. I just don't, maybe I would have. I just didn't know how to do it. No one approached me with it. I was very caught up in, my own practice, and I thought this was how it was supposed to be. I was never given the option to know what it's like to have my own business, to have an entrepreneurship skill. I think there are a lot of other physicians out there now that do think about that. I just was caught up in so much of life, of 6 children and getting them through school and sports and just staying atop of my own career, that when I finally felt a huge gap in my care for women through my own personal experience, that was the time. And that was the time the universe was like, this is your time. This is your time to go. And then you show up every day. You're resilient. You've got the grit to continue to work, but you have to love it. It's a love. Like, I enjoy sometimes to the point where you're like, you need to pull back because you need to spend time with family and you need to have some rest days. But the way you love it is like, it's exciting to hop on the computer and to like research all these things and to build it and to manage templates for your patients and answer their questions and all of those things. And that you continue to watch webinars because I geek out over all of these courses and webinars about midlife women's health. And so that's when you know that this calling is true. You really enjoy it, but you need to stay also focused with some of those other important aspects of your life, your well-being, sleep, self-care, and your family, because it's very easy to keep your face in front of this computer or on your phone and really be engulfed by your new love, if that makes sense. I do think that med school helped me be a better entrepreneur. I didn't know it at the time. Maybe now talking about it, I understand that was really just grit, determination, and the ability to continue focusing on the end goal. Because really in med school, you have to focus on the end goal. You know that at the end of 4 years, you're going to be a doctor, and that hard work has been done. And in order to get through it, that is the focus you have to maintain, because it's very easy to be discouraged and to give up. So out of even those three, I think your ability to focus to attain your goal is a big lesson from getting through med school. As an entrepreneur, I think that it shows, sticking with things, having the grit, having the determination shows up now, because not everything is going to go your way. You're selling something new, or yourself, or a product, or you are getting, you have to pitch yourself for something, a lecture or an event, or to new clients. And so someone's going to tell you no, probably more than once, maybe even more than twice. And you just have to keep moving forward, because there is an end goal, and someone is going to say yes. Someone's going to listen to you. You are going to connect with someone at some point. So that is a big lesson in entrepreneurship. You just need to keep moving forward, and you need to keep having that grit and that determination, because not everything is going to go your way, especially when it's something new, or you're trying to navigate what exactly the problem is that you're trying to solve for somebody, and maybe someone's not ready for that right now. It's okay for them to say no. So don't get hurt by that. And it's hard, because you kind of get like a gut punch. You're like, ugh, they said no, they don't like me. Why? And you just have to be like, well, shit. All right. This is what I learned from not closing this deal. I'm going to do this differently. Or why did I not resonate with this client or this patient, or this, how did I not pitch this? And you're going to learn from that. You're going to write that down. You're going to learn, and you move forward, just like you did in med school when you didn't know how to give shots or IVs or write notes. You didn't fail and didn't stop. You took your constructive criticism, and you didn't do that same way. You never made that mistake again, let me tell you. So if you're in a season that feels like pure survival, just know that it's not failure. That's forming. That's where it starts. So I'll see you in the next episode, where we'll talk about how I'm navigating a whole new season now, with a full house and a full plate. Thank you for spending time with me today on the Founder Series. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can listen to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts, and if you leave a review, it helps more women find this kind of care. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have some powerful stories coming your way. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve more than survival. You deserve to be fully seen, fully supported, and fully alive.